Hey everybody, so we have a surprise for you. It's pretty exciting, also a little bit obvious considering I'm sitting in it right now. And we are going to have Travis go over everything.
So this is a video that I never thought I would be making, but alas, here we are. It's technically been a year in the making, but I'm very excited that it's back. If anybody was wondering where this car went and why it was being offloaded and why it suspiciously wasn't really being worked on and a lot of stuff wasn't happening, all that is going to be answered. And in the meantime, I'll also just go and explain this thing from front to back, really going over all the significance of it and all that was done over the last however many years. So, as you can see, LS swap, fiberglass front clip, 1971 Pontiac Firebird. So, let's see, where should I start? I recently actually started uploading, so I made an archive channel for the old channel. This thing was technically pretty well built on that channel. There was a bunch of footage of all of it, all of this stuff. It's all been explained before, but I recently was brought to my attention that none of that exists anymore. So if you're interested in seeing this thing built originally, like in real time, all that stuff exists. But quick rundown. So in it right now is a 2003 LM4. This video was not actually pulled or found on camera. I found this separately. Originally it had an LS1. Here, let me go grab that block. So back in February of 2019, this thing was purchased as a completely bone stock 71 Firebird. Had a Pontiac 350 in it, full metal clip. It's still sitting in the backyard back there. And then in May of 2019, same year, this was swapped in. This was a completely complete 2000 model year 5.7 LS1. So all of this stuff up here, this intake manifold, the water pump, the crank pulley, not this alternator, I'll talk about that. That was all original LS1, all stuff from a car that I had bought probably in about 2014. So the way this car is set up, it is all EV1 injector plug. The car entirely thinks it's a 2002 Camaro. There's an 0411 PCM buried in the dash, and then as much factory 4th gen Camaro that can exist still is still here. Some of the stuff's been swapped out, like it's got Gen 4 coils. If I look around, there's probably some other things, but it's been living that way since. And all of that stuff was all stuff I had owned well before any of the channel existed, any of that existed, and this is technically my original car that lives on. So this thing has basically been driving around since it was first LS swapped. In February, exactly a year ago, that original LS1 was pulled out, and then like I said, that 5.3 that was built. There's another video of that that's on the archive channel. That was swapped in, and it has been running since. But there's a lot on this car that, you know, for as far as like trying to get things together for certain deadlines, a lot of the car has been totally unfinished and just really thrown together. And I'm going to be now going through this thing and actually addressing all of that and fixing it all with a lot of the stuff that I've had parts-wise for the entire year. So I'm gonna go over a little bit of that. So probably the biggest issue that never got addressed is all the wiring. Right off the bat, LSs have a lot of wires. Obviously, this thing was never designed for fuel injection in mind back in the 70s. LSs have, 8 coil packs, 8 injectors. There's a lot going on. Originally, when I put it together, I tried to hide a lot of it with the factory style of the wrap, which, since I have so much of that from all my factory stuff, I got it looking as good as it can. And then the car actually has never actually had a real body harness. So all the wiring, if you come in here, all of this wiring, this is all just to make the lights work. And I made this in like a couple minutes just to get it by. And then it was like, oh, we'll do it later. And that never happened. Over here, we've got the Ford style solenoid that was for the cutoff that had to be doing a certain way. All of this, none of this is wrapped. So one thing that I've actually had the entire year, the entire time this car has been gone, is exactly what's in the El Camino, which a video was shot of that, is a new from Painless 23 circuit chassis harness. My plan is to finally rip all of this wiring out, start from scratch, work from the bulkhead, have a bulkhead connector, and pin out this way and terminate that way. So as you can see in here, this doesn't look very good. None of this stuff, none of the column wiring has ever functioned ever. When the car was bought back in 2019, the chassis harness was like pretty terrifying. Had butt connectors everywhere. There was this stuff twisted together that was all ripped out and then never used. So the column has never been hooked up. Blinkers have never worked. The brake switch is just random wiring. So that will all be finally addressed, since I will go through and actually put the chassis harness in, and then I'm going to go to the El Camino now and show what that one looks like and how this one is going to look modeling after that one. So here we have the El Camino, and as you can see here, here is the exact same bulkhead connector as what's going in that car. And if you zoom out, you can see there's basically no wires in this entire car. Obviously a carbureted smart block has less wires to begin with, but all of the wiring, I have it wrapped with a bunch of wrap that I have, all tucked up in here, all to the headlights. And then same thing, it's got the same bus round guy as the other car, and it's all, you know, nicely done. There was a video, like I said, filming doing all of this. It doesn't exist anymore. I have it. I'm probably going to try to resurrect it on the archive channel. But this was done in order to figure out how I wanted to do that car. This one got done, and that one's next. So moving on to the passenger side, you can see a lot of the temporarily permanent wiring. And then up in here, there's the 0411 PCM. There's the fuse block that is for the engine harness. So the engine harness is also made by Painless. It's all pre-terminated, so you can kind of go through and shorten stuff later, but it's all pretty long, so it is kind of hard to hide this stuff. But that's why when I do both harnesses at the same time, I can integrate everything, make everything nice and neat, and make everything just nice in one. One of the other major, like, unfinished aspect of the car was the whole radiator support deal. So the lower radiator support is finished. There is nothing actually really holding the radiator up. I have some threaded rod here just to, like, keep it where it is. Because of the way the whole intake manifold is set up, and then having the scoops up in the front, the LS1 manifold is very low, and then needed to clear the radiator. The radiator itself is technically an LS swap radiator. It's from Cold Case, and it fits exactly where a stock one would go in a regular core supported car, but it has the inlets and outlets both on the same side, which I like because then it makes the hoses easier. So it's got the stock low manifold, clears it to go to the filters. I has the same 26-degree lean that the factory cars do. The C5 also has the same lean, which makes it easier with hoses. So everything kind of works. It's a matter of it works, does it look good, you know, iffy. And also we're always planning on not running this manifold. The LS1 manifold exists, we have it, but it's the worst performing one we have. And it was always a matter of figuring out what other manifold, how to mock it up, and then how to change whatever. So I've got a couple other manifolds I can run, and then I also have a manifold that it will eventually be on this thing. So here I've got two truck manifolds. These were both from the last video. This is a direct bolt-on to this, and performs much better. This one came out in '99, and they improved a lot of things, and it's a direct bolt-on. All I have to do is just space out for the injector rail and swap the throttle body over. But this will lift the throttle body up a little bit, so potentially this can be leaned forward. This doesn't have to be pinched. And then now I have the new weird LH6 manifold, which goes a step further. This one has a 87mm throttle body, and I can just throw a cable on it. It's got 30-pound EV6 injectors, which I can easily adapt, you know, get rid of the 26s. And then it even kicks up, so it can go up and over. So if I want to do a direct bolt-on, I've got that option. So this is a Holley low ram. I have had this intake the entire time, and it was always destined for this car. When this gets mounted, obviously this is much higher and down. So this is all going to get redone. And then, like I said, we'll figure out where the radiator is going to go, and it'll finally live. What I really want to do, I don't think I will, I actually want to run a smaller radiator since this one is huge and the thing runs too cold as it is. I want to get a smaller one, shove it up in the motor, like up in the front of it, but I don't think I will. But this manifold, like I said, will find its way on. On this motor, it'll probably lose power. So, like I said, this motor, it's an aluminum 5.3, it's an LM4, 2003. The only thing that was done to it, is a TIC Performance Elite Series cam kit. The cam is a 229, 235, 111 plus 2, 10 degrees of overlap. There's a video of us installing it and then installing this engine in the car on the archive channel. And that's actually why none of this stuff was really done before, because the car actually runs pretty well as it is. It's well dialed in, it's well tuned. When I got it back, it was running a little weird, but I got it dialed in. So I guess I'll fire it up right now. In here, flip the ignition on. Like I said, this has never been hooked up. And then these gauges, so these are new Vintage USA gauges. They've actually been hooked up the entire time. They run off of the factory PCM. The fuel gauge there, that's never been hooked up because that would be the body harness that doesn't exist. And then same thing with the oil pressure and water temperature gauges. Those were never hooked up. And then now they're actually missing. So the person who had this car before, the person where I just got it back from, they still have those gauges and they refuse to give them back, which is kind of odd. So hopefully I can get those back and actually install them. But if not, I guess I'll have to figure that out. But let me have it fired up. Ignition on. It's still cold. So I actually, since getting it back, I did a little bit of idle tuning with it. I got the idle down to all the way down to 800 to make it chop much harder. Yeah, idle's pretty rowdy. It's decent overlap. 10 degrees, it's only 345 cubic inches. But up here, it's actually pretty smooth. The noise, vibration, and hardness is actually pretty low, given it's also, because it's got 475-pound valve springs in it, which is pretty heavy for stock lifters. Shut it off. And yeah, I haven't decided yet if I'm going to reuse the factory, actually, keyed ignition. I kind of like it on switches, but I'm definitely going to clean all it up and then at least have ignition where the body harness controls the blinkers and stuff. So another major point of contention the entire time this car was here is this transcooler. So there's really nowhere for it to go. I didn't want to run it up front because there's no core support anymore and the Radiator's just, freestanding. And it's nice to have the AN lines off of the trans. You can see them deep in there. I need to make a plate for it. But the problem is that there's really nowhere for it to mount because there's no real frame on this since it's unibody. It was always mounted here. When I got the car back, the exhaust was just removed and then all the hardware was lost. So that was kind of cool. A lot of stuff was just randomly missing on this car. And I stuck it back in that spot, but I think I'm going to find a nice little pocket if I can get in there. There's a little bit of a pocket in there behind the subframe connector. I might stuff it there. I might just leave it there. I like how people see it and always ask what it is. They're always quite confused. And then I am just going to shorten the AN lines. So that's basically everything going on with the car as it sits. The car's next big plan is to finally run a real motor in this thing, not just a Cam 5.3. So it will get the red motor. So this is the 365 cubic inch iron block, unfortunately, but it is what it is. 570 horsepower on the dyno, 6,800 RPM engine. This was gonna go in the El Camino, but the El Camino doesn't have a trans that can survive, and there's really no better place to put it than the Firebird. So it's gonna be losing its high-rise single plane, which is a little bit of a bummer, but I'll just have to build another motor to use this setup. And then I'll throw on what will go on this and that. So here we've got the low ram base, and then low ram lid. So that still looks pretty good. Obviously the high-rise single plane looks even better, but low ram should fit underneath the hood. If not, I'll have to trim it a little bit, but not really worried about that. But yeah, that's basically it. And hopefully this thing actually does nines.